This is a refrigerator. I know that's not very exciting, but I don't know if it's like this in other countries, but in America, the refrigerator is like the central cultural hub of the household. Not only is it where all your food is stored and all your sustenance and such like that, but what's even more important than the food contained within the refrigerator is what is on the refrigerator. But the fridge door really presents a place to what's going on in the household, from novelties to artwork to causes that you support to precious memories, places you've been, places you want to go, things that you want to remember, things that you need to do. Anyway, but things of significance and importance belong on the fridge door. Well, today something else is getting added to my fridge door. So my friends at Quintessence Audio let me borrow the Boulder 812, and I believe that this is going to be the first review, first YouTube video, first whatever out there when it comes to the Boulder 812. So pretty awesome, pretty cool, kind of a big deal. Check out Quintessence Audio in the description below. What is the Boulder 812? It is a DAC preamp headphone amplifier. But I'm also kind of half tempted to call it a network streamer as well, because it does have streaming capabilities in the form of Bluetooth and AirPlay 2, as well as being a Roon-ready endpoint. As far as what conversion chip Boulder is using in the 812, it's not very clear. It does say that their DSP and conversion is based on that of the optional DAC in the 866, but I imagine that means that it is a little different in some capacity, but it is still the same kind of flow that Boulder used in the 866, which is a DSP that feeds a chip that is an unknown chip that Boulder is very secretive of, but they say that they use a hidden channel of a chip that is not commonly used in the HiFi space to do the conversion. I do believe that there is some sort of upsampling that happens during the DSP phase before the feed is actually sent to the conversion chip. And yes, this will still handle DSD 64 and 128. As of right now, I'm being told that the 812 upon release is going to be priced at $8,250 US. It does not come with a remote, but there is a Boulder Controller App, and that app is controllable if you have a mobile device where it's on the same network as the Boulder, or you can even use the 812's built-in internal Wi-Fi and connect that way. And while there is no official remote control, I have been told that there is a USB remote control that you can plug in a little USB IR sensor into one of the 4 USB slots, and then there's a remote control for that. There might be an Amazon link below, an affiliate link for that if you're a Boulder user who wants to get that kind of remote for your 812 or your 866. Anyway, this thing is just classic Boulder, made in the USA, all CNC'd aluminum casing, really beautifully polished and really nice looking, really smooth to the touch. Has the heat sinks that are this asymmetrical design that takes cues from the 866. But what really impressed me particularly about the 812's design is that all the text on the front and back of this device is also CNC'd into the casing. There's no little vinyl text or written on text. It is milled into the aluminum, the input selection, power on button, and on the rear panel, the right-left channels and the labeling for all the inputs. A really small but really nice detail that really exudes the quality of this device. Speaking of quality, Boulder has done something that pretty much no other component has done in my room, and that is not use a god dang blue LED. Thank you, Boulder, for using these white LEDs. They are so much less fatiguing and so much less annoying than the blue LEDs. Everyone else take note. White LEDs or red LEDs, no blue LEDs. On top of the network streaming, like I mentioned earlier, you do have a lot of input choices, digital inputs in the form of a digital coax, 2 optical ins, and a USB. You also have the option for 2 analog ins in the form of balance connections, and then a single balanced out. And like I had mentioned, there are 4 USB-A slots as well in the back, and I haven't confirmed what you would use all 4 for, but I do understand that there is a USB Wi-Fi dongle, the option for the USB IR remote that I had mentioned earlier, and then 2 slots, which I believe may be for a CD ripper as well as external storage, but I have not confirmed that. Moving to the front of the device, behind the little Rocky Mountain applique, there is the headphone outputs, and you have everything you could want as far as headphone outputs go here. You have a 4-pin balanced, you have 1/4 inch unbalanced, 4.4 millimeter balanced TRRS, and unbalanced 3.5 millimeter TRS. As far as more advanced options for the 812, you're going to have to go to the Boulder Controller app. I used the app and I didn't have any problems with it. There's nothing too eccentric or over the top about this app. It really is just a bare bones app to control the device and give you access to all those additional functions. You can control the volume, you can use it as a remote control, you can change the inputs and outputs, rename those as well, turn on and off the headphone amplifier, mute, change the balance. You can also do things like home theater bypass or select DAC mode, which enables just the DAC in the device and bypasses the preamp, so make sure you're very careful of that selection. So in my main listening setup with the Focal Sopra 2s and the Hagel 820 power amp, my comparison with the 812 was the Benchmark DAC 3L with the combination of the LA4 line amplifier. The 2 main albums that I did listen to for this was Opeth's Damnation album, as well as Charlie XCX's new Crash album. And particularly when it came to the Opeth Damnation album, I thought that the Boulder was a truly musical experience and gave a texture and body to the music that I don't think I've experienced before. And when I talk about body, I mean that there is an extra layer of depth when it comes to the instruments themselves on certain tracks throughout the Damnation album. Such as on To Rid the Disease, I felt like that when the ride cymbals are being played, you not only get the sound of the ride cymbal itself, but you can also pick up on the little bit of sound that the drumstick head makes when it comes in contact with the cymbal, and the little bit of resonance from the stick that you would hear or at least experience when actually playing the drum itself. As well as on the acoustic bits, where the sliding of the hand over the steel strings gives you that grit and a little bit of harmonic that comes off of that string, where if you were playing the guitar itself, you would feel that in your hand and maybe your body, and it comes out in a way that you can hear it and experience it as well. I feel like the pianos, where you can hear the pedals being pushed as the piano playing goes on. In a lot of other situations where I'm listening, yes, I can hear that, but I have to really be listening for it, paying attention in order to hear it. Where with the Boulder, I thought it was more apparent that that was going on. And not only more apparent, but it was more of, I could visualize and almost imitate, where I could feel like it was as if I were pushing the pedals to the piano and playing it, even though I've never played piano, but I do have, some reference of what that feels like. I have played around of a piano despite not playing piano. Soundstaging depth and width was very good, although I wouldn't say it was to the extent of like the DCS Bartok that I had experienced, but I did feel like it was more expansive and deeper than what I'm typically used to when it comes to the Benchmark components. Switching over to the Charlie XCX Crash album, where it is a completely different sound, lots of hyperpop, synths, generated bass notes, 808 notes. I did feel like this is where the 812 showed a little bit of weakness, in the form that those synthesized notes were less visceral, less dynamic than I'm typically used to when listening to the Benchmark. I felt like they were a little loose, and I would say that they were more musical, I suppose, but not what I am particularly fond of when it comes to listening to more synthesized electronic music. So now switching to the DAC 3 feeding the 812 through the analog input, I felt like all of that visceralness and impact when it came to the synths and electronic sounds was back in business. So I do feel like it is the DAC stage more than anything else that provides this soft tone to the 812 sound. That being said, going back to those piano notes and those ride cymbals and the guitars, I felt like I was still missing out on the level of detail that the 812 was providing when it came to those particular instruments. Switching the 812 to DAC mode, where the LA4 then provided the line amplifier stage, I felt like this was my least preferred combination. I think it's because the LA4 is just such a transparent preamp that all of that softness and kind of looser dynamic that the 812 DAC has was on full display and didn't have the synergy that it has with its built-in preamp to make kind of the best of both worlds when it came to that. So I switched back to the headphone side of things, and I needed a good comparison because I have the Sim Audio HAD 230, which is my go-to desktop headphone DAC and amplifier. However, the Boulder 812 is 4 times the price. Actually, it's more than 4 times the price of the 230 HAD. So I don't think it's a fair comparison because going back and forth between those two, yeah, the 812 just mopped the floor with the 230. Just everything was just so beautiful compared to it, and now knock to the 230 because I love that thing. It's a great amplifier. But the 812 was just so expansive in the sound stage, so beautiful with the separation of instruments and the blending and the synergy and the dynamics and just everything. Just everything was better. How else can I say it? So when I took the 812 back to Quintessence Audio, I had John hook up the 812 next to the DCS Bartok. And the DCS Bartok is twice the price, actually more than twice the price than the 812 when you add on the headphone amplifier. So double the price, but still these are high level components. And comparatively, they are very, very different. But at the same time, I don't know if I could pick a favorite exactly. With the Bartok, everything about my review for the Bartok in this room still holds true. The soundstage is so expansive, so wide, so deep, so unbelievable for a pair of headphones that you would think that you were listening to a pair of speakers when you put on a pair of headphones. Whereas the 812 is more of that headphone kind of sound where it is more so in your head. There's something in between your eyes basically when it comes to the soundstage. There still is that expansiveness, but I wouldn't say that it is speaker-like. And another big difference between the 812 and the Bartok was how the sound is really presented. Because when I'm listening to ending credits on the Opeth Damnation album, the sound of the lead guitar is fully on display. It is the star of the show. It is there, and everything else during that time takes a back seat to that main instrument. There still is that detail. If you listen for it, you will hear it. But the Bartok presents the song in a way that, hey, these other things, this acoustic guitar, this bass guitar, this drum set, these are the side characters. These are not the main character to this song. Listen to the lead guitar just go and whine and do its thing. That's what you should be listening to when you're listening to this song. The 812, on the other hand, still has the lead guitar very much so in the main character position, but it seems like the drums and the acoustic guitar and the bass play a much greater role in the song, in which they are more fully on display, and it's easier to pick out the fact that, hey, they're strumming this acoustic guitar and I can hear the effects of the pick in the acoustic guitar. I can actually hear the pick strumming the notes. And while yes, you can hear that on the Bartok, it is not as apparent as it is on the 812. So again, as far as what I could say I preferred in that case, the two are just so different, but the quality doesn't seem to be different. It's kind of weird. It's one of those things where they're so different, but the quality of is still, you could prefer one or the other. Now, I will say once again, the 812 is less than half the price of the Bartok. So if I really had to put my money somewhere, I really would go for the 812 when it comes to headphone listening exclusively. Now, I will also say I believe the Bartok's amplifier is much more powerful than the Boulder's. Boulder doesn't really put out a lot of technical data when it comes to the 812, and the only note about power coming from the headphone outputs is 200 milliwatts into 32 ohms and 150 ohms, and then going down to 80 milliwatts at 600 ohms. So while I had absolutely no trouble at all driving my Focal Clears and the Focal Utopias that they had at Quintessence, with planers, or if you really like extremely loud music, you might have a problem with this. I'm not really sure. I don't play my music on my headphones ever that loud, or have something crazy like a Raw Requisite or the Abyss 1266. So try it before you buy it, but I thought it had plenty of power for my uses. That's gonna do it for me. I really enjoyed my time with the 812. I don't know. I'm kind of considering one myself, so I don't know, but it's a really great piece of kit. Especially if you're really into headphones, I definitely think this is something you can consider an end game piece when it comes to a headphone setup. Thanks again to Quintessence Audio for letting me take this thing home and try it out. If you like this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe, it really helps me out. Check the links below in the description for other ways to help support the channel, as well as my Patreon, and I'll see you in the next one.